Hospital Reporters, Pride and Dignity, Stop the New World Order. Welcome to Herpanwo TV and welcome to this, the fifth and final of this series of videos on Roswell 70, the only public event outside the United States of America that was marking the 70th anniversary of the Roswell UFO incident. The final speaker of the day is Tony Topping. He's an experiencer of psychic espionage, UFOs, extraterrestrials and mind lamps. He's had some pretty remarkable experiences and he is willing to speak out about them. He has been on Herpanwo radio a couple of times, as he's also been on a couple of Herpanwo TV films like The Bases at the Barge and things like that. I wanted to leave him till last because he tends to be a rabble-rouser. He tends to raise the roof. He's a good person to provide a finale, and he did a very, very good job. After the end of Tony's speech, there was a brief Q&A. I've decided not to put it in its own video because it's too short, so I'm just going to add it on to the end of Tony's lecture. Besides, it took place literally just minutes after Tony had finished, so that's coming up as well. And then, of course, we had to cut that lovely cake. That was pretty heartbreaking to cut that cake, but I'll tell you what, it tasted damn good. So thank you very much, all of you, for watching this series of videos. I hope to be able to organise some more conferences. Now I've got a knack for it, I know what I'm doing. I have some people I know will support me. I'm very grateful to them. So I could hopefully work with them to produce some more excellent conferences. And when I do, of course, I will let you know, and I will record them on Herpanwo TV. So with no further ado, Tony Topping is coming up now. Thank you very much for watching Roswell 70. Hospital Reporters, Pride and Dignity, Stop the New World Order.
Hang on.
Right.
Hang on.
All right, now.
Hang on. Don't do nothing. We're not wired up yet.
All right. But how many of you like UFO conferences? Because Ken will be there, I know.
Rubbish. You're all nutters.
Yeah, there are several. Bring your tinfoil hats to Holmfirth, West Yorkshire, 16th and 17th of September. All right, that's when the the 5th International UFO Truth Magazine Conference will take place, and there's many great speakers there, not least me, but there are others as well, in case I'm not enough for you. It's Holmfirth, West Yorkshire, 16th and 17th of September. Details on ufotruthmagazine.co.uk. We're getting over Kathleen Marden, who is a great UFO author and is the niece of Betty and Barney Hill. So you can't miss that. Now, I'll bring on Tony in a moment, but don't go at the end when Tony's finished, because you don't want to leave out your slice of cake, do you? What we're going to do is we're actually going to have a brief Q&A session with all 5 speakers on stage, if they're all happy to do that, or any speakers who are willing to stand on stage and be cross-examined. And then we're going to have to cut that lovely cake. And we speakers, we get a little one each. John doesn't, unfortunately, because he's a late addition, but the rest of us we get our own little cupcake, so you can have your cake and eat it. But the rest of you will get a little piece of the Roswell 70 cake, so don't leave without that. Now, the gentleman I'm going to bring on is someone I met 10 years ago, actually, at the Probe conference, where I really cut my conferencorial teeth. Since then I've got to know him very well. He's a good guy, he has an interesting story to tell. Every time he comes on stage he has something new to say, and the events in his life are developing and changing as we speak. And even in the last few days, he has experienced some remarkable things, which he will be telling you about, hopefully, as much as he can. Just watch out for the Germans, that's all I can say. Ladies and gentlemen, Tony Topping.
Hello. Hello. Thanks for the invite to Holmfirth. That's brilliant. Thanks for the opportunity to let me speak at Holmfirth. The reason why I say that, by the way, is not meant in the venom that it's meant to be in, but you see, what happens with me is that I'm a lone wolf. I'm a complete lone wolf. I'm a one-man majestic 12. I've had extraordinary experiences in my life, and I get smiled and waved at by the UFO community. But there again, I sometimes don't get smiled and waved at, and in a lot of cases I get a lot of support. But sometimes in the mainstream, because of the radical and unorthodox nature of my information, I can sometimes feel isolated and quite alone, because it's a battle. In fact, it's a spiritual war. As Miles said, it's a technological war. He spoke about someone who, in his talk, who I shared a hotel room with, and we shared an hotel room because there'd been a cock-up with the bookings. And what happened was that we was in this hotel room together. He'd had similar experiences as Max Spears had. It's something for my own personal safety that I don't talk about because I have been threatened. But what happened was that it's all about, as we're going to go into my lecture, Miles has talked about all that's going on. I'm going to introduce another concept called the space-time continuum and what goes on in a space-time continuum. My research is not based on looking at the internet and doing research and then presenting documents and my opinion on them. My research is based on my raw frontline experiences of being a UFO contact experiencer in the UK. There is some greatly concerning goings on that concern extraterrestrial intelligence over the skies of Britain in terms of, and on the themes of what Miles has actually talked about. It concerns them very much. I am therefore going to tell you my story. I am always critiquing myself. I always have to step back and think, well, is that correct or isn't it? So what I do is I come from an angle as if I'm a journalist reporting my experiences. I never really kind of stand there and go, as Miles has rightly said, this is the truth. It's here to make an informed choice. But what I want to do today as well is I want to just lift the room slightly so that when you walk out the door you will at least get a positive experience of the extraterrestrial contact experience. And the fact that, on the theme once again of what Miles talks about, those kind of things are closely policed. It's come to the fore that there is among the extraterrestrial hierarchy forms of law enforcement and police, just like we have. It's been absolutely hair-raising. I've had my life threatened, and I've had all sorts happen to me. But I'm a lone wolf. I'm very much alone. If it wasn't for the support of people like Ben, Miles, New Horizons Probe, and a few others, and of course mainstream television, and media and the internet radio shows, I would be lost. The incident that happened in the hotel room with one of the guys Miles speaks of was continuum related in that the poor lad was suffering and I knew he was very vulnerable. In fact, I knew that he was under demonic attack because there is an element of Christian spiritual warfare that links very subtly into the UFO phenomenon. And the reason for this is because a US intelligence agency actually twigged on that. They were right on the money. There's a pastor in Leighton who's on TV on an evening. I won't give his name, but he's on TV on an evening. He clearly knows what's going on, but isn't aware of what he's saying. But he's coming out with all kinds of stuff because he knows what's going on, but isn't quite aware. So what happened in this hotel room, just to go back to it, was I'm laid in the bed, and what happens is that incidents start to happen of a MK Ultra futuristic type continuum in your head, in your imagination. It's not actually your imagination. Your mind's actually being invaded from the standpoint of outside of time and outside of another dimension by forces that humanity do not know about. This is what happened. The person in question sat next to me, or kind of like sat asleep trying to nod off. I know that he's vulnerable to attack, and I'm getting hammered as well. And I'm just about to close my... I'm falling asleep and I'm thinking, oh, here we go again. And all of a sudden, this kind of like non-involuntary... There's a special term for it in mind control where you hit yourself in the face. And what happened was, I saw this coming to me where I nearly hit myself in the face, but I deflected it off like that. But the other guy next to me hit himself fully in the face because he was under mind control. He was under mind control. And this is kind of like the story where it begins, because not only is it about technology, it's about this very ancient Egyptian thing. This is the mystery schools of ancient Egypt. That's actually an image of goddess Sekhmet. Rumour mill reports that it's meant to be an actual channeled image of the goddess from a guy called Robert Masters. That image is meant to be an entity. As we will see, and if you watch very closely the research of somebody like Bill Deagle, who briefly mentions, very briefly, that these entities do exist in terms of, let's say, the Hindu gods or gods in general. These entities do exist, these angelic beings do exist, and they are curiously linked to the UFO phenomena. That's me in the early days, when I first started presenting at a UFO conference in 2006. And as you can see, I'm stood there, bashful me, stood there reading off a paper with no PowerPoint presentation, just reading off a script, struggling with it, trying to come to terms with what was going on. My experiences have now evolved, really, really evolved. And that term, Sar Sekem Sahu, actually means the breath of life, the word of might, the realised human. The most important thing in terms of the mystery schools of the goddess Sekhmet is that bit there, Sahu, the realised human being. Other ETs in other galactic systems are very spiritually realised, very much so. We seem to be stagnated, and that is quite intentional. So we're going to go on a journey, and I'm going to call it like an estimate of the situation. That's kind of like the early document of one of the examples of estimate of the situation, where they were estimating, as briefly as possible, the UFO phenomenon and what they faced. So we're going to go into kind of like into the continuum and estimate the situation version 3.0 of what is really going on behind the scenes, because it's absolutely hair-raising. We're exploring, this guy's a very famous guy in the Canadian UFO scheme of things, called Wilbert Smith. Wilbert Smith had a liaison with the Canadian government. He was a technical engineer. He was absolutely incredible guy. And the Canadian government said, Mr. Smith, there is a mental component to the UFO phenomena. There's also an artificial intelligence component to it, but there's definitely a mental component to the UFO phenomena. We are going to go into this mental component. We're going to go into the front line of it. We're going to go into what it's like to live in the hell of being a contact experiencer in the UK who is striving for spiritual enlightenment. It's a war. It certainly is. It's a war of angelic forces. It's a war of aliens. It's a war of dimensions. It certainly is. And of course, I've had my fair share of fantasists approach me. I get emails from people claiming to be secret agency this, secret agency that. I had one guy claiming to be from Air Intelligence. He sent me an email telling me that his Air Force section were rewriting an open door policy on the UFO phenomena, and he wanted me to write a report, my thoughts, my findings on it, because his organisation, ladies and gentlemen, wanted to be on top of it. And when it came to the security of the United States, his Air Force section needed to know what was going on and what the threat was. Very nice photo of him, Colonel so-and-so, there you go. Quick check on Google revealed that that photo linked to a gentleman who was done for child pornography charges on a base in California. So what you've got is this constant kind of theme going on of fantasists, the downright weird, inquisitive people, governments, spies, and then the spiritual and alien components of it as well. My first psychic vision that was UFO related was when I was aged 2 years of age. That is actually a vision. And what happened was, it was a vision of Lord Ganesha at age 2, one of the Hindu gods, that has been with me for a very long time, that they constantly, the ETs that are in my life, and I make no apology for that, constantly, and why should I apologise? I'm among friends with you all. See, there's no need for it, is there? But basically, that is Ganesha. And what happened was I was stood with my father, I saw the vision of it going through the wall, thunderous noise going through the wall. I'm screaming at my father, saying, Dad, that's walked through a wall, what the hell's going on? Well, I couldn't speak, I'm trying to express that to him. I bit my lip's bleeding, he's putting me in my cot, it's as if nothing's happened. But that vision is constantly referenced throughout my experiences now in my 40s. The biography of me that's really kind of like began in 1996. So it really began for me in 96 when I returned home from drama school. And really, to cut a long story short, I've been active trying to find answers to what has happened to me. And the experiences over the past 4 years have evolved. For example, I'd stand at the Probe conference, the UFO conference there, and I would talk and go on and on about what they did to me, how they tortured within mind control, how they'd done this to me, how they'd done that to me. And you could feel the energy in the room go down, because, as people said, by popular demand, Tony just said, push it, we want to know what's going on, what's really going on, move away from that, get into the UFOs, tell us about the aliens, what's happening. And it's been a good experience for me, and that's what I've done. And that's really the UFO that started it all for me. It's a female pilot behind that. The UFO comes in, illuminates a TV antenna, and flies off. They never ever do anything without reason, and they've illuminated that TV antenna quite intentionally. The theme is antennas, they're constantly doing this, and they've illuminated that for a reason and for a purpose. That's my father. That's him stationed in Vienna. He was tremendously psychic, absolutely potently psychic. A family member got into trouble a few years back when I was years ago really now, wasn't it? Just reflecting. Yeah, years ago. And he said, I hope the place burns down. He closed his eyes in the living room and blew the place up. Luckily there was nobody in there, but the boiler room went up. He was a very good hands-on healer. He could heal cats, he could heal neuralgia. I've seen him do it, I've actually witnessed him do it. We had a lousy, stinking relationship. It wasn't very pleasant with him. It was tragic. And yet other people who knew him of my age group would say, well, he taught me meditation techniques. he spoke fluent German. That German is a theme coming up later, but he spoke fluent German. He taught me meditation techniques. There's an opposite thing of what people report. I didn't like him, we didn't get on, but the strange thing is that I believe he was targeted. I actually believe that he was targeted, and that has helped me heal the relationship. That's him there again. Tremendous healer, very talented. It's a tragedy what happened, but then to contactees who are experiencing UFOs, it very much is very hard going for us. Let me just indulge you into, before we go kind of journeying into the space-time continuum environment where these psychic events go on, I just want to indulge you into J.R.R. Tolkien and a lecture I did called the Bok Saga. Within that saga, there is a linguistics professor at Washington University who would indicate that this guy here, Tolkien, studied something beyond the Lord of the Rings, and there was possibly a student of the Bok Saga. But what was good about Tolkien is his information was so good that it's a possibility, says this linguistic professor, that there is a reality, that the actual kingdom of the Lord of the Rings and all that happened actually happened. And this is what you get, you see, you get this collectiveness. For example here, we've got ideograms from remote viewing. There's an ideogram for power, there's an ideogram for life, there's an ideogram for water. When the remote view a target, they will do a little squiggly line. That squiggly line is known as an ideogram. It's meant to open up the subconscious. The subconscious is then meant to go to the target and retrieve the information and come back again. So from point A to point B, a lot is going on. And I would class that as entrance into a space-time continuum. If you are an alien force, that is your point of control. You're not going to go down this street here with your UFO blazing your laser gun. You're going to be hidden. You're going to be deceptive. And that's exactly what's going on here. It's a collective reality. For example, if I went, ah. Now you all paused then and wonder what the friggin' hell was going on about. Or you thought, for example, that there was something going on in the room that you were not quite aware of, and your attention went to it because we all belong to a collective reality, and that reality is clearly manipulated by forces that are non-human, that are in fact alien, I strongly believe. We can see here that I got into bother then. This is how it all kind of kicked off for me. I'm part of a walking enigma, I'm part of a mystery which began with the UFOs over my house, and I had this Miles talks of super soldiers. I make no profession to be anything, but I'm telling you what happened to me. I possess something called 8 ability, or I did do, which is the ability to influence events. And the US know it as 8 ability because 8 ability means that they needed 8 martinis because of the technique they were using to influence things. They called it 8 ability. 8 ability is the ability of the mind to manipulate time and space and events to an outcome. For example, if I influence a guy on a bicycle to prevent himself from having an accident, the guy down the road might fall off a ladder. If I influence a town, for example, to stop a flood, you stop the event in time, you manipulate it, the flood itself is now manoeuvring free through time, you've manipulated the event, it turns up on Joe Alien's doorstep, he's flooded out. This is the kind of bizarre and extremely weird reality that actually goes on behind the scenes, and it's commonly known as 8 ability, the ability to influence events at planetary level. The Russians knew it as walk-in mind operations or influence of planetary affairs. This got me into a hell of a lot of trouble. Because what happened is that some of the US intelligence agencies who were monitoring the UFO phenomenon discovered MJ12, we've talked about with Roswell, but it's this agency that you want to be interested in, the Collins Elite. Has anybody heard of Collins Elite? You've heard of Collins, and nobody at all heard of Collins Elite. There was 2 agencies that the US set up, or rather, one agency did not know that the other existed, and that was MJ12. There's Majestic 12, Majority 12, but this agency, the Collins Elite, investigated as to whether UFOs had a demonic component to them. They investigated whether aliens had a demonic component to them. They employed, under something called, I think it was MK often we get our results, often we do not. They employed psychics, vicars, if there's anything they could get their hands on to understand what was going on behind the scenes with the UFO phenomena. I highly recommend the book, Final Events by Nick Redfern. It provides an essential piece of the jigsaw puzzle. And so we know that the collective consciousness of mankind is controlled. We know that this agency in the 50s had monitored it very closely. They were right on the money with what was going on. They believed, actually, that occult ritual was contributing to tears in space-time and allowing the UFOs through. Hence the sudden UFO air war of 1950, when UFOs were being shot down by Starfire jet fighters. These Starfire jet fighters were firing rockets into the UFOs, 12 salvos at a time. It's documented under a guy called Frank Fascino, called Shoot Them Down. And when I go into this area to talk of the affairs of man and the Supreme One, which is my incident 2 years ago, I've just got a swastika there in the positive way, just to lift the room slightly. You may have heard of him in the Bible, you may have heard of him in films and TV. He's a very famous guy, and it's because of all that's been going on with me, my kind of super soldier component, or whatever you want to call it, that this guy came to visit me. And he said to me, he said this, he said, you influence this event here, in that country there, and I will kill you. In fact, I'll blow your bloody brains out. Back off, is what this entity said to me. The entity, what do you think the entity might be that came to visit me? What do you think it declared itself as? Anybody know at all? Nobody, okay. What it was actually Satan himself. But was it Satan, or was it the military messing with mind control? Was it that, or was it the other? I don't know, but what I know is what I saw. And what I know is that the entity is real, and that there is actually the pentagram of Syria. It's an energetic portal point for very dark energies. And more or less what they were saying is anybody who has the ability to influence events had better keep away, is what they were saying. And I am lucky to be alive. I'm lucky to stand here and be alive. A few weeks back, or about 3 months, 6 months ago, I was subjected to the most horrendous violations with mind control because of the fact that there is an unwritten law that says if you have legitimate contact with extraterrestrials, you will be targeted. You will be kind of policed, as it were, by some very nasty entities, some very nasty beings. Remember, it's important, however, that we realise that what I'm talking about there, with the entity that I'm talking about, he is in fact a very good magician that must be respected. He has duped humanity. You'll read about it in the scriptures. It's there. And the UFO phenomena with this agency here, they knew this. The Americans knew it, the Russians knew it, which is baffling as to why there is such a gear up for conflict. Baffling to why there's all this violence in the world, when these agencies actually know what is manipulating world affairs. It's not human. There's an incident that happened to me in Southport where once again I was asleep and I got absolutely clattered with, I would only describe it as non-human mind control, which is very different to human mind control. The images are depraved, the images are horrendous, it's not very nice, and I woke up at about 4 in the morning with a start thinking I can't cope with this shit, I just can't cope with it anymore. I'm giving you insights into what happens with a contactee, when you're having contact with them, the real story of it. And what happened was the UFO came in over the house in Southport where I was staying, and it gave me, it flew around and then flew off as if nothing had happened. About 2 hours later, I actually awoke to a tremendous, incredible image of something like that leading to a higher dimension of existence, and the fact that the UK and its government was actually intricately involved in the UFO phenomena. I discovered only last week, or this week should I say, that another government appears to take a very keen interest in the UFO phenomena, and I'm going to talk about that. That happened this week, so it's hot off the press. NATO did an assessment of the alien phenomena and the UFO phenomena, and they reached some startling conclusions. I'll keep it brief. Some ET who look human and may also have the same problem of abduction. This is what I learned from what's called the Nordic ETs, the blonde, blue-eyed ETs. They said that in some cases, some ET who look human and may also have the same problem of being abducted. The abduction scenario, people vanishing, is actually very much an ethical security issue for some alien beings. And NATO assessed that some human beings that some ETs look like human beings. We look like them, they look like us. And there's a monitoring going on of the collective consciousness of mankind in terms of manipulation, in terms of conflict, and so on and so forth. It's interesting if you look at the work of Staff Sergeant Robert Dean. Have you heard of him? Have a look at his work, because he comes up with some very interesting things on that one. And of course, within the framework of this time continuum situation that's occurring, this work that I do, the work that Miles does, the work that Benz does, the work that we all do, is a collective It shapes our future. A few weeks ago, I had an incident where I could only describe it as a Chinese espionage type psychic guy came in. Ah, Mr. Topping, he's going, can you hear me? Oh, psychic, can you hear me? I am psychic, I am Chinese military. Call me Pop Noodle, Mr. Topping. We look, we see, we want to look. This is, you couldn't make it up. You could not make this up, but it's all very serious as to what's going on. I've seen incidents in this environment that I'm going to show you, the continuum, where people have been mysteriously blown out of it, or shot at, or kind of like there's been violence within it, because we're looking at what is possibly a psychic war going on that's not governed by the rules of our time. And the aliens are, or the ETs are intricately involved in this, because I think all is connected to all. Let's just give a quick demo, which I always do at my talks. Give a quick demo of a space-time continuum. Just Ben, just come up here, pal. And somebody else at random. Who else can come up? Mr. Johnson, do you want to do it? You look very Nordic. No, you're on camera. Anybody else can just come up, give me a hand. Thank you. Right. Okay, so what we've got going on is quite simply, and this is in terms of my work. It might not necessarily be, for example, another researcher's work. This is my experiences that I'm communicating with you with the UFOs. If you just stand over there for me, Ben, and then if you just stand there for me, Cole, that would be absolutely excellent. So what we've got here is a scenario, is a time continuum scenario. And what happens is this. In the environment that I'm talking about that involves UFOs, imagine that Colin is a Nordic alien. Imagine that Ben is a human being, except Ben, in terms of the space-time continuum, is about 125 years up signal line from me. What can happen, ladies and gentlemen, is because of the work we do now, it causes a shaping in the future, whereby the future itself speaks to us. It can cause a lot of noise, hence some of us contactees saying we are getting signal noise from future timeline. So what can happen is Ben is 125 years ahead, and he knows of my work, and he speaks to me because in a space-time continuum, the distance of time is collapsed. 2017, 2125, the two distances are collapsed. We actually speak to each other. This guy's the Nordic guy. He comes in, he says, hello, Mr. Ben, your scientific knowledge is now at a level where we can communicate with each other. And we have this kind of liaison going on where an agency, it is an agency by the way, in my experiences, got lucky and started exchanging information. But when you've got all the bullshit circus going on around it, the guys on the receiving end, which are the contact experiencers, get it both barrels. You actually couldn't make it up. It's that technical, you could not make it up. So thank you very much, gentlemen. I just thought that gives you just a quick demo of the space-time continuum and how the Nordic aliens, the blonde blue-eyed ones, got involved with it. As we can see, they're just the points there. And what happens is your encounters are heard and seen in time. So this information will be seen further down the timeline. It's not formed yet in time, but it will do. Miles's information will form in time, further in the future. You're going to get noise coming back at you. You're going to get signals coming back at you from other people. And this is what happens because they're all trying to look at the aliens. Colin stood there. They're all trying to catch a glimpse of him entering into the continuum itself. We had a Project Pegasus type incident in 1997 where I didn't twig what was going on. And what happened there was I was asleep at the time. I had a guy, which I could only describe as a human being, but not of this time, with a headset on, looking at me, manoeuvring himself in what can only be described as like a UFO type, time machine, H.G. Wells type thing, which he would do because he's looking at what is going on. He's actually placed up signal line from me, so it's similar to the Project Pegasus Mars time jump project. In fact, ladies and gentlemen, Andrew Basagio, I think he's called, isn't it? The fact of the situation is that in a time continuum, the Mars colony is present. Probably 100 years down time, 200 years down time, but it's there. It's just fascinating observations. That's what I'm making. I'm just making observations and sharing it with you. We've got, for example, within that continuum, it's just more than a continuum. It's more than the demonstration that I've given. It's something else. It's AI. It's its own mind. There's something else more to it than just the two guys standing there and time being collapsed and we hear each other. It's more than that, because it appears some ETs are that advanced that they are higher celestial, they are architectural ETs, they design things, and that's a typical example. I say an example of my early experiences when I didn't know what the hell was going on, where I'd have one of them fly across in dream time, go, and it would just fly across. But that's kind of like a human craft. The ET ones look similar but aren't quite. You'll look at it and go, my God, that's a strange looking gliding machine, because it's an active signal environment. The continuum is active with activity. You talk about SETI looking for extraterrestrial signals. Why do that when you can use a space-time continuum? And the finest example is an incident that happened in one of my journals where I couldn't quite understand it. I was awoken from this tremendous vision of this, which Neil Giddy's Ward has drawn for me. It's actually a vision of a UFO incident from the gentleman up there in the timeline. We've gone up timeline. He said, Tony, due to your work and other people's work, we have ended up having liaison, and this is going to happen in 2158. I've no idea whether it will, but he's telling me that's going to happen, where we're going to have a UFO incident where the scientist, who's human, is clever enough to understand their technology, and they're going to integrate. At the level of we, the government of the people, not at the level of the disastrous carry-on that we see at certain facilities that shall remain nameless, where the United States government got into bed with the wrong type of beings. I'm not blind to that. This is what I'm just talking about my experiences. So what we've got here is, there's also, when you're a contact experiencer, therefore, all this activity of ETs coming into the continuum, communicating with you. They've saved my life on numerous occasions, actually. It's been absolutely horrendous. But you'll also get time travel related incidents, including what appears to be chronovision type incidents, where you've got people from a future time, and it is shocking actually, people from a future time looking through some sort of magnifying glass or amplification system to see into the past. It's the most bizarrest thing to see, but what they're trying to catch a glimpse of is Colin, who was, for example, the Nordic alien, and other aliens within that timeline. They're trying to capture him, and they just can't seem to grasp it, they just can't seem to see it, because this work thunders on 100, 200 years from now. Even me talking about it shapes my destiny, shapes my work. In fact, it's known as a Yasmatic paradox. Yasmat, as the UFOs describe, means the causal nature of. In other words, at some level, we caused this all to happen. We here now, you, Miles, me, whatever, we caused this to happen in time, called the Yasmatic paradox. It's Sanskrit, the causal nature. Oddly enough, it's also German, which I shall come to later, for royal bloodline. It's like a bloodline thing as well. But what happened was, in the 1990s, when I was asleep again, I had a very bizarre incident with this, cut a long story short, with this lady who basically looked at me, walked into my dream space. She was definitely alien. That is taken from a 1970s drawing of her from an abduction in Dallas, Texas by a police officer. And what it was this lady then disappeared for a number of years, and she said to me that it's been a number, she said, well, the words were, it's been a number of long Earth years since I last saw you. She's a critical player in all that is going on. She's deeply involved in the contact science liaison with the guy that I've told you that's up signal line. You'd think that I'm talking science fiction, but in fact this is really going on, because you couldn't make it up. The complexity of it is absolutely staggering. And there are some very serious nuclear issues, and it's connected to the Navy ships that we saw and the visions in the continuum. She's linked to the liaison with that man there. And they're showing me in time that our work, your work, everybody's work shaped this, actually shaped the future. It's like something out of H.G. Wells, but that appears to be what happened. But she also showed me, to cut a long story short, some just about, when was it now? A few months back really. It was shocking. Shocking visions of nuclear. Shocking visions of this building here being used as a refuge shelter. It was absolutely shocking what the ET was showing us, because our politicians are leading us down a certain path of conflict, and they are watching this. And the visions were shocking. And I don't know whether it was showing it to me or showing it to the guy at the timeline, but I will never forget that. What that kind of building was when she showed me the vision. It was shocking, but we've got to keep the energy up, got to keep it moving. There was also with me some early submarine incidents as well, where a submarine was being tracked, and oddly enough the submarine was Russian. And the UFO, she showed me a vision of the UFO actually circling this submarine. And the fact that at that time India was on the brink of nuclear war with Pakistan, and it all seemed to back off. And the fact that if you look at have you heard of Bruce Caffey? I would highly recommend his research. Bruce Caffey did some research that would indicate that both sides need to know the time and the date before they can detonate a nuclear weapon, making a nuclear war impossible. However, from the visions the ETs were showing me, that is not the case. And so we're kind of like striving for our freedom, striving to release ourselves from bondage, I think it is. I think that's the word I'm looking for. Trying desperately to get away from this situation. And they are definitely there. I would call it a form of divine intervention from the ETs. I hope to God that it doesn't happen. It's all a probability. It all even could be, if you chuck it out there, it all even could be mind control. But the vision she showed me, I will never forget. And of course, the Nordic vision, this is the Nordic. These are the blonde, blue-eyed aliens who repeatedly I've had liaison with over my house. This vision itself was done by the artist Lloyd Canning for me. He brought it to life. They are the clocks. It was the height of the Ukraine crisis. I was off to the Royal Institute of International Affairs to do some filming for Channel 4. On that morning, this vision appeared. In the middle of this vision, who's not shown there, was a Nordic ET, guy, blonde, blue-eyed, speaking to someone. God knows who he was speaking to. But what they were showing was, whoever it was to, 5 to 12, quarter to midnight, the height of the Ukraine crisis, avatar, divine intervention, very symbolic. And it's made, it would appear, certain quarters very jumpy indeed. The presence of these craft and the technology behind them and what they're saying has made certain elements very, very jumpy indeed. And believe it or not, it's made these guys very jumpy. Now, I don't know whether there's any basis behind this. It could have been a journalistic wind-up, but I'm going to tell you, I'm going to share what happened to me this week. This week. That there is the symbol for the protection of the security of the Constitution. Germany. It's a German secret service, or an element of the secret service that protects its constitution. And it was very interesting because a few months ago I phoned my local council, so I thought, dialed the number, picked up the receiver, American woman on the other end, yakking away to someone, and then she suddenly goes, oh, like that, because she knew that the line had come live, dials the number, gets put through to somebody in Germany who's speaking fluent German to me down the phone. I'm thinking, sorry pal, wrong number, put the phone down. Very, very bizarre. I'm just going to read some notes about this because it's just very interesting what happened next. Went to the UFO conference last week and gave a talk actually, and noted, and there might not be anything in this either, noticed the high level of German guests there, the high level of German attendees. Two of them were talking to me, speaking about UFOs and talking fluent German to each other. And because I have been under surveillance, I've been followed and filmed by on Matt's helicopters, there were signs there that would indicate to me that something was happening. This week, on Wednesday, the phone rings, private number, and it rings, and there's a guy on the end of it with a German accent who says to me that he represents, I have no idea, but he says to me that he represents something to do with the German Intelligence Agency for National Defence, which is linked to the security of the German Constitution. You couldn't make it up. He said to me that he'd seen my talk, he wanted to know about the UFOs that I filmed, what was the interiors, and he's going on at me like this, Mr. Topping, it's changed since the Cold War, we're all friendly now, we're all on an open policy. I'm just trying to look at some of your images that you've taken, I want to know about the interior of the craft. I want to know if what it looks like. He's going on like this, and I said, look matey, I can't give you any information. There's some elements of it that I can't talk about, I'm very sorry and all that. But he carried on going on about the fact that he was quite concerned over the artificial intelligence components of the UFO triangle craft that come over. because there was an incident that happened to me with them, and I'll go into that later, but they were getting very, very, very jumpy about all this. And it seems to me that based on the images from the Nordic aliens and based on everything else, one level, and I'm not blind to what's going on at facilities, as Miles has commented on, I'm not blind to that, but one level appears to get very jumpy over that. I think they're linked. So I think that that vision there, which is to do with, which is nuclear war related and conflict, is linked to that there, GB6, or rather the Gulf Breeze 6. The Gulf Breeze 6 was 6 intelligence officers based in Germany in the 701 intelligence unit who suddenly went absent without leave. They believed, due to UFO incidents in Germany and the use of a Ouija board, they believed that there was something going on with the Antichrist, they believed that there was some war coming, they actually believed that. And I think that there is a link between Gulf Breeze 6, as we can see, cult linked to desertion arrests, that was the headline, on Wednesday, July the 8th, I think that's 1990, and I think my incident started happening in 96. There is some issue around global conflict and the intervention of extraterrestrial forces upon that, and I have reason to suspect that Germany, of all countries, is aware of this and probably is acutely aware of it. And there's another possibility as well, ladies and gentlemen, that these guys, because it is a space-time continuum and a dreamscape, i.e. when you sleep at night and you're dreaming, I have reason to suspect that these guys are also speaking to world leaders at some level. At some level, some interactions are going on at the moment that is shaping the destiny of the human race. I have to tell you that the war behind the scenes is savage. There are hostile extraterrestrial groups, I do believe, that are abducting humans, causing all sorts of chaos. I think Miles put it very eloquently, actually, as to what's going on. This is the other component element of it. And if you went into Project Hesdalen in Norway, you would see once again the revealing of technology that is absolutely beyond us. I've reason to suspect it's about 700 years ahead of us from what the Nordic ETs are telling me. Project Hesdalen is in Norway, and they began investigating in Norway strange dot of light UFOs in the sky. How are we for time, Ben?
We've got another 25 minutes.
Good job, right, okay, fine, all right for time. Okay, excellent. So what's happening is at Project Hesdalen, if you've got these... Who's heard of Project Hesdalen, by the way? Okay, it's interesting, the BBC came to film me at the UFO Academy for the One show, you know. And it's interesting because as they were filming me, I talked about the findings of an astrophysicist at Hesdalen who commented on what was going on with the phenomena, and it gave credence to the fact that it could be extraterrestrial. Oh, no, they said, we don't want that in. Because there is an agenda in the UK. I've given talks before now where one of these guys has turned up, Dr. So-and-so, we all know who he is, maybe he was turned up, and I've watched him as I've been talking, and he's written notes on anything that could not be credible, but has not written notes on anything that could be verified. For example, I was filmed by an unmarked helicopter, verified by Jane's Defence Weekly as being an unusual unmarked helicopter that the British forces do not use. He didn't write that down. Gives it credibility. This is theme, this agenda going on. That's actually a plasma UFO, and it's actually going in. I'm actually just about to give a talk, and the thing appears at Berwick-upon-Tweed. It over. Berwick-upon-Tweed. The journalist turned around to me and said, "Oh yeah, well you're just plugging yourself, aren't you? Oh, how convenient that you gave a talk and that turned up." I actually didn't notice it. If it wasn't for my friend who does the image analysis, Jason, I'd have never seen it in a million years. And there it was. It's a reason. It's there for a purpose. This is kind of like the... Just let me play you this clip. This is a UFO that I took about 3 weeks ago, a plasma-type UFO that comes in over me. It's a daylight sighting of a UFO taken about 3 weeks ago over my house. Here it comes. Note the antenna. Very important. Note the antenna from the other UFO images. It's going to pass over, and it does. And there it goes there. And it's passing over me. That's my ham radio set. Jason's done a really good job there of just highlighting it for you. That's over my house. So what you've got, ladies and gentlemen, is a whole mental component, a whole platform, a whole theatre of operation going on behind the scenes just by seeing that simple UFO in the sky, which is either a plasma-type UFO or a triangle type UFO that is bigger than what it actually looks like, because the technology is kind of like they can manipulate it so it looks smaller than what it is. It's very, very clever tech that they're using. Very clever indeed. This is the guy who I was talking about to the BBC when he did his research in Hesline, Torredino Massimo. He concluded 95% are thermal plasma. That UFO that you saw there's a possibility it's thermal plasma, but 5% are solid objects under intelligent control. He believes, does this gentleman, that the plasma can be manipulated like we would manipulate DNA, like we would manipulate our industrial processes. He believes that a civilization is quite capable of manipulating thermal plasma in such a way that they are under intelligent control, and he would suggest, or I would suggest, should I say, that there is a higher dimension. I'm not being critical of them, but for some reason that bit they didn't want putting in gives credibility, gives credence. This is the thing with the media, they tend to avoid it. And some more observational conclusions about these UFOs as we can see there for you. And the question was, if they are intelligent, who is behind it? That is the question, who indeed is behind it? That's, once again, you've seen the UFO flying past an antenna previously. This is the UFO near my house in 1999 when it all kicked off. I got police surveillance on me after this, secret police following me, strange phone calls, all very strange. It's illuminating a TV antenna. That UFO illuminates a TV antenna. There's a theme to it. And this is in fact excuse the spelling on this clip, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. Watch what this UFO does. This is my ham radio antenna, and the clip's not playing. I'd like you to have seen that. What's happened there? What happens is basically that the UFO comes in over the house, I do beg your pardon, and my ham radio antenna is kind of like that, and it literally, can you see that on the laser light? It does this, it literally just flies through it like that. Don't know whether you can see that, ladies and gentlemen, it actually flies through the antenna and changes its shape and flies on again. It's giving a demonstration of a technology that is beyond our understanding, quite intentionally directed to some type of agency or some type of human agency at our level, not at the level of the goings-on in the strange facilities with them. This seems to be something else, some kind of intervention. As we can see here, taken once again, an unusual flight manoeuvre. There's what we believe to be the triangle UFO. This comes in, this small UFO comes in from the left. It will rotate 360 degrees around it at speed, and it will take off at speed in that direction upwards to its right. That's the triangle there. We've got this constant theme all the time of technology. That's actually a UAV taken last year near my home. Can you see that? But what you'll notice is the UFO is there, and it passes it at tremendous speed. Tremendous speed. We couldn't slow it down, it was that quick. But we did the analysis, we discovered that's the UAV. People say it's a passenger plane, we've had it blown up, it isn't. The wings at the back end are kind of down like that, like a typical UAV rather than up, rather than straight. So we've got that situation. That's the UAV, that's the UFO. This constant theme is reflected to us of a technological base, and also, I do believe, of a spiritual understanding. And now we've got one country who you hardly even hear of really, but they do have a background in UFOs, suddenly kind of like phoning me up and wanting to discuss it, and it's all a bit strange, but this is the life that we lead. This has been a torpedo UFO that's also been seen. What this can do is it's passed over the house at speed. I've been trying to get it on camera for ages, and this is what happens. And normally it will go through cloud and not come back out again. It's been filmed all over the UK at tremendous speed. So you can imagine a UAV up against something like that. We are seeing the constant theme that we are not alone in the skies of Britain. I think we are seeing a constant message of communication, a striving for peace, and an opposition to some very strange forces that are manipulating humanity. For example, this here is known as Project Doorway, and what's happened here is another example of the Nordics and their technology. That's an abduction in Brazil. You can see he's been lifted out of his bed by them. He's left his imprint there, but he's moved a bit. So what's happened is they lift him up, he moves forward slightly, because that is not in position there, it's just slightly forward, because he's moved forward. Guy in Brazil, this happened to. What is fascinating is, of course, is this, another demonstration which I thought was fascinating. courtesy of Linda Howe, and it is this. You've got there a scorched fibre and a normal fibre. It looks as if these fibres on that sheet have been subjected to precision heat technology. Those fibres there have been subjected to high temperature, very high. Those fibres there should be scorched, but they're not. In fact, they've concluded of the textile experts that those have been subjected to the opposite, extreme cold. Extreme heat, extreme cold. The theme again, a constant technology. Our future, if we can take it, according to Philip Corso's book, Love Him or Hate Him. I do believe then that the disclosure, what we see in terms of UFOs and disclosure, the fact that there are demonic forces at work, the fact that there are alien forces at work, as Miles has so eloquently pointed out, this is the other component of it. This is the bit that we deserve. This is your birthright. This is your understanding. I would beg you to, well, you will do. You'll go and do the research. You'll go and take a look at it. But I think that the disclosure of their existence to Earth humans, which is us, Earth humans is very smart. They've done it in such a way that bypasses the normal control mechanisms of the oppressive silence of the UFO phenomena. It's my estimate that it's a 100-year evolutionary span where Earth human science grasps the knowledge of a 700-year advanced scientific base. So we're talking the guys who build the ships, the guys who build the cars, the normal Joe on the street. That scientific base seems to grasp an understanding of what's going on of this 700-year advanced scientific base. That's what I feel is going on. That's one of the UFOs coming in over my home there again. As we can see, they're always around me. There was an abduction incident that actually happened to me with the Nordics a few months back as well, which I'll go into. But the Nordics ETs, the blonde, blue-eyed aliens, who the Zulu nation refer to as the Wazugu. Wazugu actually means person from the sky, dust devil. And so when the people from Britain turned up and came face to face with the Zulu, they thought that they were aliens from the skies above, and they also called them Wazugu as well. There was an incident that happened a few months ago, last year, or the year before, I can't remember, where they said to me, these Nordics who fly in over my house, they said to me that they were going to prevent something off the south coast that was going to happen, and they did prevent it as well. They saved millions of lives. There was an intervention that actually occurred, but it only made small headlines in the newspapers. But they'd intervened, they'd stopped it, they'd corrected it, and it was the manipulation of geology and all that kind of thing that they'd done. And the AI UFO incident that I had, artificial intelligence, which got our German secret police friend very jumpy, was the fact that I was shown by these Nordics that that triangle there has its own mind. It thinks, it speaks, it communicates. According to the Nordic, they use these for precision analysis where they need heavy computing power. These triangles have heavy computing power that they can use. What is interesting is when I communicated with it, I cannot begin to describe to you that it was like speaking to a machine out of something like a science fiction movie, a machine that had a conscious mind. And that German guy that rang me was very jumpy about that, very nervous about it, wanted to know more about it, because obviously somebody somewhere, which is probably private sector, I would think, wanted a grasp of this technology. But you see, ladies and gentlemen, you've got to be sensible with it. It's highly dangerous work. The work that we do, you know, the speakers here, we're involved in it, and it can get hair-raising. And so, you know, you've got to somehow try and keep your sanity with it. You certainly have. Christmas of last year was a particular one because I'm a carer for my mother. She's got various issues, as my mother, bless her heart. And I think it was Christmas of last year, I went down with a serious dose of flu. And what happened was I was on trying to look after her. How the hell she didn't get it, I've no idea, because we didn't have respite in place at that time. We were struggling to get it all organised. We got it organised. I'm on the bed, delirious with fever. The room's spinning. It's a Saturday afternoon. My mum's downstairs asleep. Next minute I know, I nod off. Next minute I know, there's a knock at my front door. If you can imagine the mind's eye sees a knock at the front door. He stood there. This man is stood there, and he just says to me, hello. And he says, you know, would you like to just come with me? And you can hear, I can remember it distinctively, the wah, wah, wah sound of a craft applying power and moving. To cut a long story short, ladies and gentlemen, because it's getting warm in here, cut a long story short, he took me to the Ribblehead Viaduct. And I remember him distinctly, in the vision that I had, I was stood with him, and we were stood about there, and he looked up at it and he said, Tony, That is a magnificent structure. I remember looking up at it like this. I came back again from the abduction and I was well again within 3 hours. I was mysteriously cured of the fever that I had within 3 hours. By the next day, I was up and active again, looking after my mother. This man has saved my life on possibly 3 occasions because they know, ladies and gentlemen, that human affairs are manipulated. They know that we've got to stand up. They know that we've got to kind of like find our destiny, as it were, with all this. Because somebody somewhere let the wrong people in the wrong bed, as far as I'm concerned with all this, on the theme that Miles has been talking about. So I'm just giving you insights as to the experiences. And a few weeks later, in the Ribblehead Viaduct area, that appeared, that unusual cloud formation, and I have reason to suspect that it's them that put it there. I might be wrong, I don't know, but they left a mark. Our government know, according to them, that they're here. Our government said, the Nordics have said that the government, the UK government anyway, has known since 1960 that we've been flying over the skies of Britain. But the question is, where do I fit in with all this? That's what I'm struggling to comprehend, but I'm getting there. So there are various security issues. It's not all plain sailing. There are kind of within the galaxy of Andromeda where they come from, there are various security issues. There's law enforcement, there's issues among them. I won't go into them. I won't go into them at the moment because it's long in the day, the room is warm, and you know, if you want to ask me what that's all about, please feel free to ask me, but it's fascinating. What they told me about all that was fascinating. And here's an example of a ship's engine from a human-looking ET communication that was received in the continuum. And basically it goes something like this, just ignore that bit. But basically from what they were saying, water, it's a ship's propulsion system that they have on their planet. What happens is the water comes through like that, and the elements in the rotor system here, or in the charging system, charge the water in such a way that it causes motion, it causes a push of the vessel. According to a contactee in Sweden who's having also similar contactees to me, it's to do with the spin of electrons and the fact that the certain spin can cause charge and cause the ship to actually move. But that's from the early days. That's actually from my early journals where that was coming over. Now you imagine, ladies and gentlemen, that vision, which is a crap drawing, I know, but that vision, as clear as day, being broadcast over a very bizarre scenario that I didn't understand, because what they're actually doing is communicating with the man up here. That's what they're actually doing. They're communicating their technology. In other words, we made it, ladies and gentlemen. We began liaison for a better world, I do strongly believe. I'll just miss that out. We've gone through that, definitely so. We know all that, I'm sure you know all that. And of course, I strongly believe that this lady, she has briefly mentioned to me that I may have a daughter to her, and that's the next bit that's going to be revealed to me. So I've got these strange phone calls from people who claim to be from the government. I've got all this going on around with me. It's a hell of a lot to deal with. Luckily, I'm alive to tell you the tale because it has got very serious indeed over the months ahead. So hopefully if we have another conference, I'll be able to report back to you. But listen, thank you for listening to me. I hope this time that I made it through and didn't get excited with myself and therefore distort my information. I hope that I just spoke at a calm, steady speed, which is what I wanted. And I hope you enjoyed the talk. I really do. Thank you for listening. It's warm, isn't it? Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, Tony, there's 5 minutes in. Do you want to take questions?
Yeah, we can take questions. Any questions, anyone? Yeah, fire away. Yeah, go on, Col.
Do I need the microphone?
We'll see, yeah.
Shell.
Yeah, well, it was interesting about the Gulf Breeze 6 because I've actually got the book.
So you want, yeah.
Unbroken Promises. I only read it a few years ago.
Really? So you've got the book?
There's a connection there with the Gulf Breeze sightings.
Yes.
Because while they were at the German military base, I think
yes.
Ed Waters was having all these contact stuff.
Yes.
Those amazing photos.
Yes.
Plasma beams. So
yeah.
And they all basically went to Pensacola, which is where the Gulf Breeze sightings were happening, and they were. I can't remember now, but there was a whole load of channeled information, and they also got. I think they got a proper discharge or something.
Yes, they did. Yes, there was a whole load of channel information, wasn't there?
Yeah,
they did, didn't they? They got a proper discharge.
So I think
I'm just saying that people aren't familiar. It's hard to get by, but you can. I think it's called Unbroken Promises, and I'm get the name of the author, but it was obviously one of the soldiers, and I think there was a woman involved.
Yeah.
And they were doing like a normal sort of clairvoyant channeling session.
I think
but
there's something gone on in Germany.
Yeah,
I do believe something has gone on, literally gone on in Germany that I'm not quite sure of. Either that or it's a journalist from a national newspaper putting on a German accent and just wanting to wind me up. Because he was asking questions about the royal family, which I gave very polite answers about. So you just don't know, it can go either way.
No.
But I think from what he was talking about, there was something going on that
I think it was a sort of they had an end of the world type scenario, and they were freaked out enough to totally leave Germany, go to America.
That's what freaked them out.
Pretty much.
And I think there's a link because I think they're freaked out now. And I think it might be that the
Lance Davis, I think, was the guy's name.
Well, that's his name. Yeah,
I think
that's
that's
right.
the one. Yeah.
Sorry.
What is the situation between the Nordics and the reptilians, as we know, the Dracos?
The situation is that I think that they class them as some type of demonic species, actually, the Nordics. There's the Nordics, there's that other lady you saw, there's also the Palladians, who are very Hindu in look, long hair, very beautiful. You see their females, especially in other galaxies, their females are revered, absolutely revered, doted on, adored on. Some of them, they look incredible, I've seen them, but they're very spiritual people. And so one of the things they said to me was that they're here for the sake of the children of all mankind, is what they say. They don't want this to happen. The path to catastrophe we're going down is quite unbelievable, really. That coupled with what went on in the 1950s after Roswell, when the US shadow government decided to do what it did, and it should hang its head in bloody shame. Some of us who are contact experiences, who we believe are genuine contact experiences, have seen all that firsthand as well. So the reptilian, the Draco, is real. They're real. They're an entity. They're very real indeed.
Is there any other aliens that's supporting us, or?
Yes. There's. Christ, there's something going on at the moment with a guy called Corey Good at the moment. Do anybody know Corey Good?
Yeah.
Okay, he's put up on his website something to do with avian ETs, yeah? There's a guy called Randy, he owns his own radio show, but basically Randy has indicated that the drawings that Mr. Good has done may actually be from a simulated mind control situation, because the avian aliens that I have seen actually do exist, but they look more like you, or they look more like me, and they have more kind of, if you were looked at them at first glance, you'd think, Christ, you look a bit bird-like. They exist and they're real, but it's been distorted. And so there's this concept going on of possible mind control from that, which is very worrying. For example, he put an article up on the internet to do with Nordic extraterrestrials and the fact that they're coming and they're communicating with the Vatican. In real life, when you've got them over your house, when you're seeing what they're opposing, it's far more savage and far more brutal than just, it's all fluffy and all nice, That's what I've discovered. Really quite worrying. And the thing is, with life expectancy, you don't know how long you've got with this. You really don't. I don't know how long I've got, you see. Quite serious. There you go. That's it. Anyone else? Yeah? Anybody else? Beer, bar, food, thank God.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's tell the topic.
I hope you enjoyed that. I welcome any feedback at all, just to improve things is always welcome, or any questions always welcome. Thank you.
Well, now then, don't go yet, Tony. Could Colin and Miles join me here, and John, if he feels up to it? It's up to you, you don't have to, but if you want to. Right.
Stand up.
Yeah. Cool, I'll just... I've got to change the camera angle.
It's not my one, is it?
No, we're going to have a little bit of Q&A.
All right.
This is probably computer power supply.
Give me the wrong one.
Right then, ladies and gentlemen, what we're going to do is make yourselves comfortable, gentlemen.
Stand up.
That's it.
You want a chair? Did you get chairs?
Do you feel up to standing, or you want to have a seat? Yeah, all right, we'll just get some chairs. This, we won't have, it's getting quite late, so this won't take long. This won't take long.
Especially if there's no any
So 1, 2, you guys can sit here. Okay.
I don't mind.
And I'm a speaker as well, but I don't mind. If anyone wants to ask me a question, you can do, but I don't mind circulating with a mic.
I'll stand here. Yeah, they couldn't shout, I'll stand here.
Okay. Right, Mike, we'll begin.
You want to sit down?
Okay, Tony, this is directed at you. You mentioned the Dracos. It's not often they get a little bit of publicity, thank God. We've got the Dracos who are the dark side, and then we've got the Palladians who are on the light side, etc. But you've also got the business of the ascension of the planet, and how lots and lots of I'm bringing this up in case some people here don't know, but they're getting a lot of. We're getting a lot of attention. We're getting lots of ETs are coming from way over from the other side of the universe. What else do you know about it?
That's because the vibratory level of consciousness of the planet is actually being lifted. Right. But in real life, it's all right being written about on the internet about how it's going to be better. It's brutal. This is brutal. It's not. I can't even begin to describe it. But the brutality of the prevention of that happening is shocking. And so what at the moment is, as we see the planetary vibration increase, we also see war and conflict increase. The stuff going on in London, for example, is not as it appears to be. The war on terror, as you well know, not as it appears to be, because the vibration of the planet is rising to a more higher celestial level.
That's the plan, yeah.
Yeah. About 1,000 years, about a 1,000-year plan, I would think, to get there. It's not going to come easily, but that appears to be what is going on.
I did think at one time it would be in my lifetime, but I don't think it will be.
No, it's not going to happen. No, it's not. And I've seen what happens if we don't get there, and I think we will. I think we're being helped. But the demonic forces that are at work, it's brutal, absolutely brutal.
They're fighting tooth and nail.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. What visited me, I felt such sorrow for it. What came to visit me was the overriding ruler of the firm that rules the earth, because shit happens. So it was shocking, frankly, and I felt such sorrow. I really felt such sorrow for it. So there we go.
Anybody else?
Just another sort of metaphysical question. When we think in terms of timelines and events and experiences that are created, which I think can be changed, but do you think there is a general consensus timeline which applies to everybody, or can individuals create their own personal timeline of experiences and events depending on the individual?
There appears to be, from what the ET have shown me, in particular when it comes to time and time-related events, there appears to be particular situations that appear to be locked in time that cannot be manoeuvred out of time or altered or shaped, which is a very troubling thing. So it's not going to be plain sailing for us, but there has been incidents where they've literally manipulated events for the safety of us all, I think. So that they have got the technology to do that. Have I answered your question? I don't know whether I have.
Yeah, I can see what you mean about being locked in time.
Yeah.
I suppose what I'm driving at really is how the timeline develops. Is it something that everybody is going to be experiencing the same events, or
Yes.
or could an individual create his own timeline to know where he's
An
going?
individual can create. There's a lot to be said for Quasicotal death-defier. There's a lot to be said for he's a time jumper in ancient Maya, where he had the ability to jump time, so he had the ability to avoid an oncoming situation. He could see it coming, and he could actually manipulate around time to prevent it from happening or alter it. That's where I would think death defier comes from. But the situation with it is that you manipulate one event, and another event appears elsewhere of a similar nature. It's very quantum. It's very kind of, one event is prevented, but another event forms somewhere else. So Mr. Parks, with the turning off of CERN, as he said at a conference a few weeks ago, could be manifest now somewhere else as something else. This seems to be the nature of how it works.
It has to be displaced.
Yes, it's displaced, as far as I'm concerned anyway. I mean, I'm open-minded about that, but this seems to be, from my experience, is what's going on.
Yeah, I think it's a subject, it's an aspect of all of this which we're almost just beginning to get to grips with it, aren't we?
It is. Yeah. The visions I saw across the time frame from the ET woman were very disturbing, and they were real light. This was real light. This wasn't something she was making up, and it shocked me very deeply. This is where we're heading. And when you look at Trump, you look at the politicians, they know all this. They know what we're talking about. For some reason, they're hell-bent on sending us down this path, and it frankly alarms me, but there you go. Go on, yeah.
I should point out also, Dave, Olaf Thomas Rabi, he developed an awful lot of what Simon Parks was saying with the time and space shifts and activities at CERN. In this case, it was large area explosions. Very interesting indeed. Got another question now from Tino.
Just a general question to all of you, an answer please. The kind of skirmishes we're having in ufology at the moment at various levels and places, do we see a human hand behind this, or are we seeing something deeper that's causing these little battles here, there and everywhere?
I think you can answer that, mate, pretty well.
They definitely do not like us getting together and talking. I've seen this as a simple event, simple little charity, hospital radio. Hospital radio getting together, communicating with sick patients, and the level of attack a small community group like that had was unbelievable. And because it was the most successful little hospital radio station, there was something they didn't want the patients to be involved with, to have this thing, and they destroyed that little radio station. And then if you see the way they've got several communities were taken apart, they get a community of people doing something, finding out about something, and then he put somebody in there, and then they exploit, they just find out what the personality differences are, and then hit one or two buttons, and then let it just take off. And it always works. And it's happened in the UFO community, so it means that the UFO community must be getting close to actually finding out something that they desperately don't want us to find out. So we have to bury the hatchet, ignore the personalities, because we're all exploited, and remember the focus of why we're involved with this is to find out what the hell is going on. So we've got to stick together, forget the personalities. Personally, I know I'm not going to go into it. I'm just going to talk about it, but just don't do it. Anyway, we're being exploited. We're here, we've all got together for some reason to find out what's going on. Focus on that. Ignore the personalities. And when somebody goes off or something happens, let them just burn out. Forget it. It'll move on to somebody else. But remember, ultimately, we're all here together to find out what's happening. And remember that focus and stick with it. It'll be hard, it'll be difficult, but we just all have to love each other.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that, I mean, that whole subject of ufology is probably riddled with agents, disinfo agents, people under various forms of mind control, and not necessarily even aware of it themselves. So, this is the thing, and it can get to you at any time. Like Miles was talking about, I mean, I'm very suspicious about what happened to like Graham Birdsall and maybe Tony Dodd and things like that. I mean, that's at the extreme level, but when they can't kill you, then they will use other means to sort of, sow disinformation or cause infighting. So you have to sort of remain calm. It's not easy, and it's a shame for ufology because obviously, it's such an important subject that we all really need some sort of community, but obviously there are forces at work that don't want this to happen, and it's a very sad thing, I'm afraid. But if we can do positive events, even if it's just small events like this where we can all meet up and just start talking again, we don't have to be on other sides, we can agree to disagree about things, and that's not a crime to agree to disagree. I mean, I have it with the alien autopsy subject. I know I've fallen out with Philip Mansell, I've gone back to friends with him. I know we don't agree about issues, but I am back, as a friend with him, and we come sort of polar opposites regarding the alien autopsy. But things like this, you're always going to get such passion, and you do get people who can easily be switched, just like targeted individuals that we've had before. So we just have to really sort of come to some sort of agreement where we agree to disagree. It's going to be difficult, and I'm sure it will get a lot worse maybe before it gets better even. But as Mark says, I do think there is something to the fact that it is because we're actually getting somewhere, or actually getting a clearer picture of what's actually going on, that maybe these things are actually happening now. And so, who knows, in a few years' time we might actually know a lot more about what's been happening to us. Maybe there's some future event, as I always say about crop circles, something will happen in the future where we'll suddenly understand a part of this, and it's only maybe after some future events will happen where you can look back at it all and the picture's a lot clearer.
I sort of agree with a lot of that, yeah. I'm just wondering about John Podesta, who we all know is close to the Democratic Party and Hillary Clinton, and he wanted disclosure. And I don't know what the facts are about that Pizzagate business, where he was brought in, he was accused or suggested that he was involved in this paedophile ring. Now, I don't know if there's any truth in that, but I'd be suspicious that it's a way of doing away with his reputation. Just suspicion. There you go.
Can you seen the banned film called Iron Skull?
Iron Skull?
Yeah, the
Nazi.
yeah. We were me and Miles saw that in London message.
Before you speak, can I make a comment on Tina's question as well?
Yeah.
It's a good question, Ken. I'll come to you in a minute. But now, I'm very much involved in this. I've been a big part of this business when it comes to infighting and things like that. And I found myself drawn into it inevitably. But what I found, which is interesting, is the response of, for instance, Nick Pope. The whole business with Larry Warren started off as a completely personal conflict, and it's still a personal conflict, really, deep down. It's just somebody doesn't like Larry Warren on a personal level. This is why this whole thing is happening. Yeah, when Sasha Christie started posting lots of blog articles about how bad Larry was, for some reason Nick Pope decided to shove his oar in. And this is very, very odd. I mean, to me, why would he want to get involved in that? You'd think it would be beneath him, it would be something he wouldn't be interested in. The very fact that he has, though, is concerns me. I mean, I don't know what his motives are, but I have my concerns about Nick Pope, about what his agenda is, and I know that he himself has written a book about the Reynolds and Forrest incident, which excludes Larry from the story altogether, virtually, and Peter Robbins has written a book defending Larry just only 2 years ago. So I think Larry, I'm not saying that, I don't think Sasha Christie has anything other than a personal grudge and wishes to settle a score, but other people higher up may decide that she's singing the right tune, and so therefore they will streamline what she's doing to greater publicity.
Yeah. So what we're commenting on, what you're commenting on?
Sorry, I broke the narrative.
Okay, yeah, indeed. Well, there's a lot of narcissism going on in our subject. You have to be aware of being narcissistic. You have to be aware if you're attention seeking. And what I say is this: you never feed the animals at the zoo. And it's certainly shocking. Nick Pope's behaviour has been absolutely shocking. And I don't understand why it is, but it's as if some of us are being lined up and targeted for some very bizarre reason. And I find it all very sinister. And the fact of the matter is, I think that there are forces at work, dark forces at work, that are manipulating behind the scenes for this conflict to happen. I mean, Miles has nearly been whacked. I nearly got whacked 2 years ago. We're all under continual threat, some of our researchers. And it's not good then, not good at all, is it? And there you go.
Ken's asking about the Iron Skies movie.
I just wanted to know what your comments are what you do know anything about.
Iron Skies about the secret Nazi alien bases. We've managed to get it in. The only thing we have not got in today is the black goo. I'm going to say the black goo. Right, we've said the black goo. We've got Iron Skies. If anybody's seen it, is a bit of a tongue-in-cheek sci-fi movie, but what it does is it pokes fun, but it puts a lot of could be true stuff. I.e., everybody's got their secret space program. Every major power has their flying saucers. So we're all involved with secret wars, we're all involved with our aliens and their cyborgs. And it's a case of weaponizing consciousness, which in many respects is what they've been doing anyway. It's just that they're now really actually dealing with consciousness in a cyborg agenda, but that's another thing altogether. Iron Sky's great movie.
I think they're doing the new one.
They're doing a new one. It's a zero budget film,
Trying to get money.
a zero budget movie, but good fun.
We banned.
It's if you want to see Sarah Palin for president, yo. But she's secretly a reptilian alien. Okay. It's a secret reptilian alien.
Right, Colin, do you want to say anything about that?
No, I've
seen the movie.
Well, I've seen the movie, yeah, it's very interesting. It's very much so with Sawyer Hunter, actually. There's a good sort of, you know, it's a lot of information in, sort of encoded, that sort of tongue in cheek.
Tell people what it's about.
Well, yeah. If you know more, you know what I mean about it.
Essentially, it's about the Germans surviving the war. They took their secret flying saucer technology down to Antarctic, established the Arctic secret base, which I'm reliably informed that the Antarctic is filling up with cities. They're building huge amounts of infrastructure down there. Sweeps Royden Fox, does anybody know him? Sweeps Royden Fox appears at Probe a lot. He's actually a US military nurse, was in for the First Gulf War, male nurse. He was put on active duty, he's just come back from Antarctica. They're building big stuff down there. Anyway, the basic principle is that they survived the war. One of the entrances to the inner Earth, Admiral Byrd, is all down there. There's been an awful lot of secret stuff in the Antarctic that's been bumped off, bases taken out of different countries. And that's where the Vatican are looking for Planet X and Nibiru stuff, which is all rubbish, but it's Planet X we've got to worry about. And that's what this is about. And then the Germans establish a base on the moon, and then they come back to establish the Fifth Reich, which we all know the Fourth Reich was dissolved a few years ago.
Okay, one last question, anyone? Don't think of one? Mike?
Just one. You just mentioned the Antarctic and that's how they get into the inner Earth. What about the race that's already in the middle of the planet, the Agarthans? What does anybody know about that?
Just think of the inner core of the Earth like an apple core. And if you eat down to an apple core and you stick that in the middle of the Earth, the surface of the apple core that's left is the habitable zones within the Earth in a column that goes from the northern hemisphere to the southern hemisphere. Because we're in a dynamic field, which is basically a toroid. And so if you know the right combinations, you can get into the inner Earth. So again, that's where a lot of the so-called ETs come from. But it's like an apple core. It's quite distorted, and as you would expect, but there's a habitable region that, allegedly, which is like that. It's not quite clinically clean. It's not like a sphere. It's more like an apple core. And Nassim Haramein's work on planets in that they're effectively toroidal field systems would fit that. Yeah. Which is why he's one of the rogue physicists, for want of a better word. Yeah. Nassim Haramein from Hawaii.
It's really deep. I mean, we think we're going quite deep when we're drilling for oil, but it's just thousands of miles deep before you even touch it.
Some people claim there's a central sun, and
that's it. Yeah.
I mean, I know Sheldon Nigel does that. I mean, I've followed his work, and I mean that's quite. I mean, after Atlantis, I think there was a lot of people went back into inner Earth after that sank. You know, the stories about these people going underground and that. But there's also claims that they're living on some sort of higher dimensional level, and they're waiting for first contact event, and then apparently they're actually they have their own ships, if you believe that, and there's Agarthan ships as well. We're not just being visited from outer space, if you believe we're being visited, but also other dimensions, and also these inner Earth beings, and certainly that comes across in these materials. So I mean, it's such a big planet. You just think, well, we just don't know. We don't know so much about what's actually going on. We don't know what's going on underwater. We don't know what's going on, inside. It could be, who knows? But I personally believe that Agartha is real.
The Agarthan's going to be part of the reception.
Exactly. Yeah. Why not?
You see, you could be of the opinion that the Roswell UFO incident is is actually an inner Earth UFO that actually crashed. There's a distinct possibility. If you look on the internet, you'll see a certain breed of ET that's seen underground quite a lot on innocent little photos of images of ETs on the internet cropping up all the time. So there is a school of thinking that could suggest that the Roswell crash is an inner Earth UFO that's actually crashed. There really is. I think there's going to be no greeting party. I think there's going to be no we're going to approach you with open arms from the ET point of view. There are security issues around ETs that people don't know about, that the exopolitics movement is in denial about. Some of that is kind of like people with the wrong technology who are extraterrestrial causing problems within their own groupings, as it were, of ETs, is a very real thing. And it's a very worrying thing as well, I do feel. It's not all plain sailing with them at all.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, could the speakers all stand up if you're up to it, up on the stage. Right now, if you want to take their photos, you can come and take their photos by all means. There's plenty of other conferences coming out. There's the AwakeCon, which that's in November, isn't it? Yeah, and there's UFO Truth, like I said. There's plenty of others. If you get the conference bug and you want to become part of the community, there are many other events like this, okay, which you can come to. But right now, this is Roswell 70. This has been the only Roswell event for the 70th anniversary, not only in Britain but in Europe. Is that right? In Europe. So we have made history here, I think. We really have. But I mean, what we have here is some great guys. There's Emlyn-Jones, brilliant man. There's Colin Morgan. Very interesting stuff indeed. And we have John. Scary, yeah, sorry. Recent addition.
Yeah, but you're the main man.
I
wouldn't have
I haven't
happened
forgotten.
without you.
Yes,
everybody.
And Tony. Great stuff there. And of course, this was my idea, I organised it.
Well done.
And I'm proud of what I've done, and I've got to thank also Miles, who's not only a speaker, he's done a lot of this technical stuff as well. He's done a lot of this. And of course, Tino on merchandise store, right? He's been there all day. He's been there all day. He's been really great. And of course, Sophie and Chris, you've been fancy, you provide some amazing things, which we're going to tuck into in a minute.
A beautiful cake.
This projector screen, Sophie and Chris, you can thank them as well for that. That's really great.
So, I think then we can say we've had full disclosure at the White House. Is that what we're saying?
Oh, that's quite something, isn't it? That's a great slogan for this event, actually. When I upload the videos, I'll make sure I put that in. Now, but most of all, I think, yeah. You guys for coming. Thank you very much for coming, all of you. It's fantastic.
Thanks to you.
Thank you, all of you. You've been great for coming all this way, from wherever you live. And, well, I hope you've got something out of this event. You'll go home. And you can, maybe, we'll have disclosure soon. Whatever form it might be. But now we're going to do something really awful. We've got to cut that lovely cake.
Get some photographs.
And yeah, I've got a few already. We're going to get some more. And of course, we speakers, apart from John, who was a late addition, we've got our own little cupcakes as well. So we're going
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and good night, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
No, do you need to find your thing?
Here we go. Oh.
Ben performing his own autopsy on the cake.
I'm doing the alien cake autopsy now.
Can't believe it.
Oh, the real. So how many people are there?
62.
One slice for Ben, which is 3/4.
Something about a slice, isn't it? I think everyone can have like something like that. Have you got a freezer, man? Oh no, I have got a freezer. It's a really small one. yeah. Oh, but and so we sort of share the icing bits out and everything. And
Who's going to eat the
Dissect him.
here we are.